compound interest, as Einstein said, was a great eighth wonder of the world. And if we never allow us to save and invest where the compound interest can allow us to grow, we're going to be a slave to money all our life. I'm amazed at how many people fantasize about being fortunate and being financially independent, and yet such a small percentage of population actually do obtain it. I mean, when I looked around at the actual stats, it's about 1% or less. So that means there's a whole lot of people that have a fantasy about it, but they don't get around to doing the action steps or don't feel worthy enough to have it. They don't give themselves permission to have it. I was speaking in South Africa many years ago, and there was about 5,000 people in the audience. And I asked how many of you want to be financially independent? And every hand went up. Some had two hands up, some had their leg up in the air. So everybody was exuberant about the idea. And then when I saw the crowd, it was rumbling. It was, yeah. And then I asked how many of you are financially independent, where your passive income exceeds your active income, and you're working because you love to, not because you have to. And it was interesting that the hands all went down, all but 7. So 7 out of 5,000. Now these were entrepreneurs, so you would think that the percentage would be much higher. But many of them were in the early stages, 20s to 50s, and hadn't quite obtained that state. And it was really interesting to see what was really going in their consciousness. I then asked them, isn't it interesting that we have 99 to 100% of the people with their hands up, but less than 1% actually kept them up? And that was a bit disheartening. They're kind of like, oh. And I said, wouldn't it be nice to know why? And so I basically asked them a question to write down on a piece of paper, blank piece of paper, and you can do this if you want. And imagine that I gave you 10 million US dollars. Well, most people would be able to survive on $10 million, financially independent. Some would require way more, some maybe less. But let's say you had $10 million handed to you, and it was US dollars. So in some countries that's worth more than, depending on the exchange. And you had $10 million, and now I asked you a question. What would you do with that $10 million in the next 60 seconds? If you had 60 seconds to write down the 10 things you would do with that money once you got it, let's give you 60 seconds to write as fast as you can those 10 things. And I had everybody write those 10 things down really quick. And the 60 seconds, I stopped. I said, now take the sheet that you just wrote it on and hand it to the person on the left. And then the person on the left calculate how much of that $10 million is still now an asset that is going to potentially earn income passively. Because financial independence is passive income, not active income. And amazingly, 20 to 80% of the $10 million was spent in 60 seconds on consumables that depreciated in value. That meant that the majority of people in that room, the second they got money, they immediately bought things that went down in value, that depreciated instead of appreciated, which became sort of a liability as far as financial independence is concerned, instead of an asset, which meant that their values, what their priorities were, the things that were important to them, wasn't really financial independence, or they would have taken that money and bought assets to accumulate and grow further wealth. But they bought immediate gratifying consumables that went down in value. And most of the things they wrote down is they get that new car, they get those new clothes, they go on that new trip, they get that new house. All the things that are lifestyles, not asset accumulation. So I explained to them the reason why the people don't have financial independence has nothing to do with the amount of money they've earned. It has everything to do with how they manage what they've made And that's based on what they value. And each individual has a hierarchy of values, and the hierarchy of values is dictating how they spend. So if you have a very high value on good food, I've seen people spend enormous amounts of money in a month on their food, and they can't seem to afford their rent, but they can afford their food, or they can afford their clothes, but they can't afford their fitness. Each individual will find money for things that they value and run out of money for things that they don't, or not want to spend on it. Let's put it that way. So the hierarchy of your values is dictated by your financial destiny is dictated by your hierarchy of values, and they're determining how you spend money. Now, the question is, what makes us feel worthy of having a value on asset accumulation and wealth so it can work for us? See, if we don't ever buy assets that go up in value, we're going to be working as a slave for money our whole life. And then when we're 70s, 80s, we may not be as easily able to work as hard. So we'll probably have a decrescendoing life. We'll downsize our lifestyle. But if we have not immediate gratification, but long-term deferred gratification, and think longer term, and think of buying assets, we'll temporarily stop the overspending and allow us not to live beyond our means, but actually to save and invest and buy assets that go up in value that give us dividends, capital gains, returns, and give us passive income. So we're now, when we're in our 70s, we're crescendoing and having the opportunities to travel, do whatever we want to do, because we've been patient and allow our money work for us. Compound interest, as Einstein said, was a great eighth wonder of the world. And if we never allow us to save and invest, where the compound interest can allow us to grow, we're going to be a slave to money all our life. Now the question is why? Why is it that some people are immediate gratifying and some people are long-term deferred gratification? This is something that in my Breakthrough Experience program that I've addressed almost every time for 34 almost years. And I watch people come in there and they fantasize about lots of stuff, but I'm interested in what their life demonstrates, and the hierarchy of their values is dictating that. You know, I talk about values every presentation I do. So I found this. So this is what you want to make sure you're right, even though you may have picked a few notes already. That you have a hierarchy of values, a set of priorities that you live your life by. That is evolving as you go through life, but at any one moment in life, you have a set of values. Now, this hierarchy of values has things that are most important to least important, higher priority, lower priority. Whenever you are doing actions that are in line congruently with what you value most, your self-worth goes up. You feel you deserve. You feel, confidence in yourself because you're walking your talk. Because in your highest value, you're disciplined, reliable, and focused, and you tend to achieve what you set out to do. You're more objective, and you have a bigger, longer time horizon because you're patient, because you're doing something you love. But when you're not doing something that's high in your values, but something low in your values, your blood glucose and oxygen goes not into the executive center where you're more masterful, but goes down into your amygdala, where you're more avoiding pain and seeking pleasure, avoiding predator seeking prey, avoiding difficulty seeking ease. And you're more likely to be in immediate gratification because you're unfulfilled. When you're unfulfilled, you try to fill your life with food, and you try to fill your life with stuff, consumables, where you live vicariously through other people's values instead of building a brand in your own value. And so what happens, you now build a house and it just fills up with stuff, a lifestyle with stuff and food, because you're stuffing yourself for the non-fulfillment when you're doing low priority things. Your fulfillment level is proportional to how high up on the values you go. If you feel you're doing the highest priority, you have more fulfillment. If you're doing lower priority, it's not hard to see. How many of you think about your day when you're living by the highest priorities, you knocked it out of the ballpark, you feel great. If you feel like you've been putting out fires all day and never got around to doing what was important, you don't. So one is fulfilling and the other one is unfulfilling. When you're unfulfilled, you want to go and get addicted to pride, addicted to fantasy, consume food, and consume consumables. So you spend your money instead of actually invest your money. And what's interesting is that immediate gratification costs you long-term vision, costs you the long-term gratified wealth building. So, and your self-worth goes down. Because anytime you're doing lower priority things, you feel lower. Just look at your life. When you're doing something that's not important and you feel like you're putting out fires, you don't feel great at the end of the day. So you self-depreciate. When you self-depreciate, there's a thing called brain offloading. And brain offloading means you tend to make decisions through other people. You don't feel confident in yourself. So you then subordinate to other people that you think have a better life, which they don't, but you think they do. And then you tend to inject some of their values in life and try to be somebody you're not and cloud the clarity of what's important to you. When you do, you bang your head against the wall trying to be somebody you're not because you're making decision in your own values, but you're trying to live in somebody else's and you won't be able to sustain it. Think about the time when you were infatuated with somebody and you were enamored with somebody and you were conscious of their upsides, unconscious of the downside, blind by an infatuation, and started sacrificing the things you normally did to do what you think they want to do for fear of loss of them. When you did, you can do that for a few days or weeks maybe, but after a while you go, hey, what's in it for me? I've sacrificed for you, and you start to build up some resentment and want your life back and get back to your own priorities. So if you're not living by highest priority in your own life, your self-worth goes down. You'll self-depreciate. You'll sacrifice altruistically. And a lot of people are sacrificing altruistically and giving away their potential for earning wealth. And so they don't have permission. That's why I said you got to give yourself permission to be fortunate. And that's not going to happen unless you're living by high priority actions where your self-worth is up and you feel, by God, I'm in fair exchange. See, when you're living by your highest values, you're more objective. When you're more objective, you're not subjectively biased interpretationing of things. Because when you do, you tend to false positive the positives or false positive the negatives and skew things. Your interpretation of reality is not exactly balanced. But when you're living in your highest values, it's more objective and more balanced. And so you're more likely to have fair exchange. You're more likely not to try to get something for nothing when you're puffed up or give something for nothing when you're beat up. You're interested in giving something for something, a sustainable fair exchange, which increases the probability of people wanting to do business with you and an increasing probability that you are valuing yourself enough to save and invest and buy assets. And if you don't have a value on wealth building, well, it's not likely to occur. Money circulates through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most. In the Breakthrough Experience program, I watch people come in with all different levels of awareness financially. And finance is not the only thing I'm interested in. That program, I'm interested in empowering all areas of life. I have people that have different levels of awareness about what's important to them in relationships or social interaction. And so whatever is highest on the values where they excel, whatever's low on the values where they have deceleration and unfulfillment. So the hierarchy of your values is fulfilling all areas. That's why in the Breakthrough Experience, I show people how to determine their values, how to mold values, and how to link values so they can maximize empowerment in all 7 areas, including finances. Because the truth is that people deserve to be empowered in all areas. That's been my goal since I was 18 for the last 50 years, helping myself and others do something extraordinary in all 7 areas of life. All my books, all my programs, all the Breakthrough, everything I do, all my seminars are all designed for that, to try to help people live extraordinary lives in the 7 areas of life. To develop their genius, to develop a business, develop their wealth, develop their family stability and intimacy and love, and to increase their leadership skills, increase their vitality and energy and beauty, and increase their inspiration. But when it comes to finances, we all have wealth in these areas, but not everybody has financial wealth. And giving yourself permission to have sustainable fair exchange by living by priority and having an expanded view of yourself and a deferred gratification instead of immediate gratification and having self-worth that goes up. I'm very interested in helping people have higher self-worth. And that translates also into a greater net worth financially because you feel worthy of having what you say you want. Many people have fantasies. And when you're in your amygdala, you'll look for a pleasure without a pain. And you're not willing to do what it takes to get that. And so you have a fantasy instead of a real objective. A real objective is something that is basically you're willing to do whatever it takes to do it, the pain, the pleasure to do it. I have many fantasies that I've had along my journey that I thought were important to me, and then they faded away because I realized, I'm obviously illusioned because I'm not really working on it. So I either change the goal or delete the goal or refine the strategy or link whatever are the action step to get it to my values. And I train all the people in the Breakthrough Experience all how to do that so they can increase the probability of achieving what they say they want. Because if you don't, they beat themselves up. When they beat themselves up, they feel unworthy. When they do, they offload and they inject, and then they try to have futility trying to be somebody they're not. You don't need to be somebody other than yourself. The magnificence of who you are is greater than all the illusions you have out there. I've been blessed enough to meet a lot of interesting people, a lot of celebrities and leaders and things of this nature. And I can tell you that they're just human beings. Yes, they may have excelled in an area, and maybe that's a very high paying area, but that doesn't mean that, you need to be like that, because the reality is you need to be yourself. The authentic you is way more powerful than the fantasy. Why be second at being Elvis when you can be first at being you? And a lot of times you find out behind the scenes that they're under high stresses. You don't want their stresses. You don't want their challenges. And many of them who you think are wealthy aren't even that. They're in debt because they haven't gotten past their own issues inside finances. So just know that the hierarchy of your values dictates your financial destiny. And if you have a value on wealth building and you have a value on serving people and a value on saving and investing and buying assets, well, then you'll most likely put aside a portion of whatever you earn and work at trying to serve people to earn more and patiently defer gratification for the objective of having your money work for you as a master, not having you work for money as a slave. I didn't have an understanding really of finance till I was about 27. And then from that point on, I gradually developed it. At age 27, I was pretty good at working. I had a work ethic, and I had a pretty good savings ethic. And I would save to buy books, or I would save to go to school, or I would save to buy a car, I'd save to get a house. But it was interesting as I was saving to get stuff. And I was 27, a gentleman walked in my office and asked me a series of questions that made me ground me and made me realize that if I was continuing at that rate, I would never have money work for me. And that was the beginning when I decided I was going to actually buy assets. And then I had to ask, am I worth that? Because a lot of times we think we want that, and then we actually find ourselves interfering with that. And we're not giving ourselves permission to be fortunate. And the thing is embracing wealth is embracing the accountabilities that it takes. The accountability is to defer gratification and patience. In the breakthrough experience, I teach people how to live congruently with their highest values, determine their values, and dissolve all the distractions that stop that so they can increase the probability of building their fortune. And many of my students, thousands of students, have sent letters and things and shown the impact it's had financially. And it's rewarding. It's fun to read. I love watching and reading the letters that I get from people that said, I've never been able to save, and now it's moving forward. And now I'm investing. And I didn't even know what investing was. And now I know I'm buying index funds, or I'm buying real estate properties and renting them out, or I'm buying this and that. And they're learning about how money works. And in the process of doing that, their confidence is going up. They're more stable, and they're more attractive. When you ask men and women, particularly women, what they want in a relationship, pretty consistently, they say, we want somebody that's physically fit and attractive, obviously, a search image, somebody that if they were to have a child with, they wouldn't go, ugh, what the heck is this? Something that's attractive. Then you also are looking for somebody that's intelligent, and they're looking for somebody that's got some ambition, and somebody that's got some resources or potential resources. They don't have to take care of them like a mommy. Somebody that actually wants them, that wants to be close to them and hold them and be with them and to endure whatever challenges it is with together. They want somebody that has social savvy, that is a trophy. If you go out with them, they're nice to show off, you might say, and nice to be with, and they can interact with friends and family and loved ones, and they have a prestige. You're looking for somebody that's also inspired by something, not some desperate person that's depressed at home. So you're looking for the empowerment in all areas when you're trying to find a mate. So the question is if you don't have empowerment in all those areas, why would the mate want you? What are you offering them? It's utilitarian. I hate to say it, but it is. People want to live in the fantasy. It's all romantic, but the truth is people are utilitarian. They also want what's in it for them. They're not going to go out and date somebody unless they think there's some return on the investment of their time. So financial reward is very valuable. It's a universal value that can be used in many areas. The more wealth you have, In fact, the wealth means it comes from the etymological word root wheel, which means well-being or whole or health-wise. So the socioeconomics, as it goes up, you have greater wealth and health. You also have probably better education. You probably have a greater job opportunities. There's so many areas. You probably select more if you have wealth on who you have as a spouse. You also have more social standing and more physical health, and you can be inspired if you're doing a job that you love. If you're making money without meaning, well, then you can end up in debauchery. But if you have money with meaning, you can live in the philanthropy. So it's very important to then go and prioritize your life, have a value on doing something you love, so you can't wait to get up in the morning and do it. Do it something objectively where there's sustainable fair exchange. Take a portion of what you've earned. And I learned at 27 to automate my financial position. I started to take money, whatever I earned, a portion of it, and it went a minimum or a portion, whatever is greater, and I put it into an asset accumulation. It really wasn't rocket science. I trained many people on this. It's so simple. In the breakthrough experience, I've had a little section on there on just finances sometimes, and I go in there and depending on the audiences have different needs in the group. So I'll go in and I'll do what I can to show them what they can do. Some simple things. They can start the ball rolling and start building their financial potential. And it's not that difficult. I remember watching a video by Charlie Munger, that's the partner with Warren Buffett. He said that, the Wall Street wants you to think it's so complex that they get a hold of your money. But he says it's very simple. You buy assets. So what I did is I automated the purchase of assets on a weekly basis, and my assets grew. And then the passive income grew. And eventually the passive income exceeded my active income. And it was really quite intriguing to watch this happen. It didn't happen overnight. It took a while, but the patience and watching it happen became invigorating. And then all of a sudden I'm getting to do what I love to do anyway, but I'm getting to do it not because I really have to, because I really love to doing it. And then the process of doing that, it sets you free from a lot of the challenges that many people face all their life. And you can crescendo your life if you want, or you can be philanthropic if you want. So you want to give yourself permission to be fortunate, because you have more opportunities in life, more associations, more ideas, the people, I noticed that as my wealth went up, the people I hung out with, when I had $10, I hung out with 10 heirs. At $100, I hung out with 100 heirs. $1,000, 1,000 heirs. $1 million, millionaires. $10 decamillionaires. 50 million, 50 millionaires. A billionaires. As you rise in your wealth potential, so do the opportunities of more influential people and more opportunities to have leadership position. It just goes on and on. So it pays off to value yourself enough and value wealth enough to become its master, not its slave. And the people that say they're either infatuated with money and they want to quickly gamble and get rich quick, or the people that resent money and say, I'm not into the money, they're not going to manage money. They're going to be run by money all their life. Anything you infatuate with or resent is going to run you. That's why in the breakthrough experience, I teach you the Demartini method on how to dissolve infatuations, resentments. Because those are the two primary impulsive and instinctual distraction mechanisms that stop you from doing extraordinary things. Every weekend when I teach people the breakthrough and I go through and I show them how to dissolve their impulses and instincts that distract them from being present and purposeful and prioritized, they go, wow, my mind is clear. It's not got the noise and static. I'm now able to navigate towards what I want and not be affected by pleasing other people and worrying about what they think, or angry at other people because they're trying to change me or whatever, opportunist. The infatuation resentments that people are trapped in are dissolvable. I've worked 50 years on systems on how to dissolve all the obstacles that people face from doing something extraordinary with their life. If you're not seeing everything in your life on the way and you're seeing things in the way and you've got running stories about how you didn't get this or someone went this way and you got all these narratives and stories, it's holding you back from being fortunate. Because fortunate is really a state of gratitude for what you have. And when you have gratitude for what you have, you get more to be grateful for. And that opens up the doorway for fortunate life and embracing wealth that way. Wealth means well-being, and well-being means whole, and allowing it, and nothing's missing in your life. In Breakthrough, I show you how nothing's missing in your life. Everything you think is missing is in a form you haven't honored yet. And so that's why I want people to come to the Breakthrough experience and learn the method and develop their values and get clear, because it's just going to give you a competitive advantage in life. The average person's going through life and missing out on the magnificence, and they could be doing something more extraordinary. And so that's why I took the time to do these little presentations each week, to try to give some sort of education and also action steps, and to make your mind think a bit, to stretch outside the normal boundaries that it's probably living in. We many times subordinate to the moral hypocrisies of outside authorities, mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, and they may or may not be financially fortunate. They may not be wealthy. They may not be financially independent. Beware of where you're subordinating to, because whatever you subordinate to and inject into your life will probably impact your decisions. Some people call those limiting beliefs. And anytime you're trying to live outside your own values, you're going to end up thinking there's something wrong with you, because you're going to have futility. And you don't need to have futility. You can have utility. Utility means doing something that serves other people with sustainable, fair exchange. Futility is trying to get something for nothing, or trying to give something for nothing that eventually backfires. It's not sustainable. So I just want to take a time to do that, and to encourage you to come to the Breakthrough Experience. Also go online and do the value determination process so you can live by priority. If you fill your day with high priority actions, you increase the probability of building your fortune. But if you're not doing high priority actions, your day is going to fill up with low priority distractions. You're going to devalue yourself. You're going to feel the amygdala. You're going to be wanting something for nothing, or looking for fantasies or consumables. And you're going to overeat and do all the things that the amygdala does. All the addictions come from that. And that's not the way to master your life. That's the animal brain. And there's not a lot of fortunate animals. You want the angelic brain, the human brain that's inspired. And that's what the Breakthrough Experience is about. That's what my method's about. That's what value determination is for. Everything I'm working towards and been teaching all these years is for that objective. Let me help you do what I've helped thousands and thousands of people do. The things that I set out to do to help me master my life, the 7 areas of life, I've been blessed to have all of those areas empowering today. And what's interesting is there's nothing there that's rocket science. It can be do. You can do it. It's not that difficult. And I'd love to show it to you and give you the opportunity that I've had in life, because I took the time to figure it out and put it together. And I'd rather pass the torch to you, because if I help other people get what they want to get in life, I get what I want to get in life. I love reading the letters of people that have extraordinary outcomes from the Breakthrough Experience. It's inspiring to me. It gets tears to my eyes, makes me want to go and do more breakthroughs. That's why I love to do them. I've been doing them for 34 almost years, and I've been working on the material for 50 almost. So I love to share that with you. Why reinvent a wheel when you can take 50 years worth of understanding and summarize it and take it and run with it? You know, there's so many young people that are coming to the Breakthrough Experience today that are stepping on the shoulders that I took 50 years to learn, and they're taking off with it. And they're going and doing things much faster than I was doing it. So please take advantage of that and join me at the Breakthrough Experience. Do the value determination process. Give yourself permission to be fortunate. Give yourself permission to have your money work for you instead of you work for it all your life. And do something extraordinary with your life. It's up to you. Nobody's going to get up in the morning and dedicate their life to your fulfillment. It's totally up to you. So this is Dr. Demartini. That's my message for the week. And I hope to see you at the Breakthrough Experience. I just know if I can share with you in 24 hours, I just spent 30 minutes with you. There I give you 24 hours of very powerful information that's right there on the spot, change your life, and you get to use it for the rest of your life. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for joining me today.